So last week I decided to build a YouTube to screenshot API, and the reason I decided to do this was because I just simply couldn't find any API out there which did what I wanted it to do. So I did a quick Google search and only sort of 3 results came up for it, and none of them were very promising, so I had to build it from the ground up. There were a few things which were involved in doing this. The challenges that I faced were primarily, how do I get the usage tracked? How do I authenticate against the API? What framework should I choose to build the API? Should I build it as part of PocketBase, or should I just go and do it using a different service? And then there was, how do I host all of these apps as a cluster, and how do I make it scalable? But it got me thinking, like, how should you create an API with PocketBase? And the first thing that I did was to check Reddit and to ask people, look, how are you guys creating your APIs with PocketBase? And the simple answer and the simple pattern that many are using is to basically have your users sign up and then have them create their API keys, and then have those API keys verified against a web service, and then that web service basically going and matching that key against that user. So to break it all down into sort of a simple diagram, if you've got PocketBase does all of your authentication, manages your users. You set up a different web service. I like this simple architecture because it separates concerns. You've got your web services, which do the actual API part of it. So that actually does the service of screenshotting those YouTube videos. And then you've got your web app, which is the thing which allows you to create those keys and to interact. I use FastPocket for my web app, and that's just because that's what I've built out as my own boilerplate. And that basically allows me to create the keys from that web app and then do the authentication by having an admin service running on the web service, which does the key matching between the web service and the PocketBase database. So all of that sounds really complicated, but I promise you it's not. And we're going to break it down. We're going to create a simple database for fetching different breeds of cats. There's already a classic one out there, which, if you don't know, is CatFacts. A CatFacts API. It was one of the first APIs that I think it was the first API that I ever used, and it's still pretty solid today. So we're going to do something similar where we get breeds, or actually we might get a random fact. So we might source a couple of facts from CatFacts, and then we're going to basically authenticate these so that we're going to have protected facts, which can only be fetched with an API key. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first step is to download PocketBase. I have already downloaded PocketBase for my operating system. You should choose the right version for your operating system and architecture. I have got this here, and the first thing that we want to do is to check the documentation to make sure that things are running smoothly and that we can start the apps. So the way that I'm going to do that is through proxy site, because I cannot access, for whatever reason, the PocketBase.io docs without proxying it. And we're going to go to the docs, and from the introduction page we can see that the way to get started is to go PocketBase serve. So we're going to run that. We're just going to change it to our directory here, run PocketBase serve, and this will create us a brand new instance. The PB data is created there. And we're going to just copy this and then go and create our first user. Test. Great, we've got our first database. Now, there's a few things that we want to get started. We want to create a collection called API keys, and we'll add a field with a key in it, as well as a relation to a user, and we'll just make that like that. And this API keys is going to be where we're going to be generating our key. And to begin with, we're just going to put our key as hello world in true programmer fashion, and we'll just create a dummy user here. And we'll leave all of that empty, set the user as myself, set a test password, and I'll set myself as verified, create that. Now, this is the start of the authentication API authorization that we're doing here. So authentication and authorization are two separate things, by the way. Authentication is where you're basically saying the user can only access certain resources, but authorization is saying that this is the user, who the user says it is. We're not too concerned with authentication in terms of our API key. We just want to be able to access the API that we're building. So now that we've got this basic PocketBase instance set up, I think we can start looking at the way that we're going to set up our service, our web service. And I looked around for what might be the best options to basically do web services these days. Express is still super popular and probably is never going to die, but it just didn't really seem like the thing that I wanted to use. I would have preferred to have used something that was going to be a bit more modern, maybe something that people were actively working on. So I looked at Fastify, and Fastify is very easy to get set up using the Fastify CLI. So obviously the first thing that we're going to want to do is to go to the docs for Fastify, and we're going to actually want to use the CLI in order to start our server. So CLI is very, very quick to create a simple route. So directly from the docs, you can see here, they give you basically 4 steps that you have to take. And we'll start that by going to new folder and then service. And then we'll create a new file here called server.js. And we'll also create a new terminal here. We'll change into service. And we're going to run npm init. And this is going to ask us a series of questions that we need to create our web service. So we'll call this early morning dev catfax. And just enter through all of this. None of that is important. And that will give us our package.json file. Now we want to run the npm I Fastify CLI, which is going to give us this installer. And we're going to want to add to our package.json this scripts here, this start script. So we'll just copy that line and then go to our package.json, swap that script there. And this is just going to call the Fastify CLI directly. And we're going to copy this code here. And I'm going to explain how this code works. So this this pattern that Fastify is using is called the inversion of control pattern. And what is happening here is this function is consuming an instance of the Fastify class, if you will. And that's basically the guts of the app, and handles all of the serving and the HTTP routing and things like that. All you need to do is to set up the way you want things routed, and you consume it by going fastify.get or whatever your method is. Then whatever you want the name of your route to be on the server side, or on the browser side rather, so that you can basically get that information, and it returns a reply with your data. So this is the simplest version of Fastify, and it's really, when I saw how easy this is to get set up, this is why I went down this route. You don't have to worry about all of the other concerns and all of the boilerplate and padding which comes with other frameworks. Like this is the simplest version of Fastify, obviously, but for me, was building a one route API, and as we're just building it now with catfax, it doesn't make sense to have anything more than this. So yeah, we should be able to run this now and see how this works. So let's run this. Okay, so that's up. Now by default, this is going to serve on localhost 3000. So I'm just going to run that. Okay, we can even modify this here to add in a question mark. And we'll notice that it won't actually refresh. And unfortunately in Fastify, we don't have a hot reload, so we actually do have to restart the server instance. So if we do that, and then we change back and refresh, we've got our exclamation mark there. So that's great. We've set up our we've set up our web service and we've also set up our PocketBase instance. Now, we're not going to set up the web app because that's out of the scope of this video, but just using the PocketBase and the web service, we're going to be able to consume our API. So let's get into that. Okay, so now we're going to get into the meat of it. We're going to create our collection of cat facts. So I'm going to call this one facts, and we're going to take a look at our cat facts API and see what facts return. So if we go try now, execute. Okay, we get our facts like this. So I think we can just have facts and then the fact here. And then we can probably just copy and paste what we have here. And yeah, I think 2 facts is enough to demonstrate how to set up this authorization. And now what we're going to want to do is to set up a middleware for our service. So the way that we do that, just to explain middlewares as well, middlewares are a way that we can essentially have a function called before or after a request is processed on the route. And in this case, we're creating a middleware which will intercept the header of a HTTP request to ensure that it contains the right API key. And this will this will authenticate the user so that they can use it. So the way that we're going to set it up here is we're just going to create a new async function, and we're going to call it auth. We're going to bring in the request and the reply, and we're going to create a new constant API key. From the request headers, we're going to require that the x-API-key is present, and then we're going to, from here, create our authorization with PocketBase. So to do this, we're going to need to first install PocketBase. So we can go npm I PocketBase, and this will install PocketBase for us. And because we're using CJS just as part of this, I'm going to have an import here for PocketBase. And we're going to create a new PocketBase instance here by going const pb equals and what we're doing is we're instantiating this so that we don't have to keep calling it. I'm going to call this PocketBase URL, which for now is just going to be HTTP local host 8090, and I'm going to add this to the end of it and return new PocketBase. And what we're doing here is we've created an instance which we can then consume later on here. So doing that, I'm going to set the auto cancellation here to false. And the reason that I'm doing this is because if we get multiple requests, they can cancel each other out to PocketBase, because what we're going to do is every time that a request is received, we're going to make a call to PocketBase to say, is this a valid API key? If it's not, we're going to say unauthorized. And yeah, we want to make sure that if the API is getting spammed, it's not going to cancel other people's requests, because that can be really complicated. Handling traffic on an API like this is a completely different topic, so it's probably something that needs to be covered in the scope of another video, but we'll just get through creating just the functionality here. So let's go await pb.admins.auth with password, and we're going to actually use an admin account here in order to do all of the checking. So we will go to our PocketBase instance now. If we go to our settings, our admins here, we'll create a new admin, and we'll call this guy bingo@namo.com, and we'll give him a easy to guess password of @password 1234 at password 1234. We'll create that. And going back to our code, we will add in the user bingo at namo.com and at password 1234. Is that right? Yeah, cool. So yeah, this is going to be the credentials which we use to communicate with PocketBase. So we're basically using the web service to match our API key, but the web service needs to be able to access PocketBase. So we're setting up an admin instance so that it can access PocketBase and can do all of the authentication in order to basically just use the web key, or the API key, sorry. So going to here, we want to go try. Now we're going to set again this PB. Actually, we don't need to do that. We're just going to go await PB-collection, and then we're going to go API underscore key, and we're going to get the first list item and the key that corresponds to our API key. I think key is what we have it set up with here. Yeah, cool. Yeah, and that's right. And then we're going to do a catch block here. And in this catch block, if an error occurs, we're going to go return reply.code 401, which is the code which we use for if a user is not authenticated. And we're going to say error, get out of here, kid. All right, cool. And now what we want to do is we want to add this authorization function as our middleware, and that is as simple as doing fastfire.add hook, and the type of hook, which is a pre-handler, meaning it will happen before the request so that an unauthorized actor can't jump on and do whatever they do. And I'm just going to format this document like a boss. And now what we want to do is we want to set this route to be authenticated. So with this pre-handler, it doesn't occur by default. You actually have to bring that in. So we'll keep this hook here, and we'll test our API now by running this. Oh, got to spin up the server. Silly me. No. Okay, failed to connect, blah, blah, blah. Try changing the local host to 127. All right, we need to restart. We should also just double check, always double check in the API routes here. Yeah, okay, 127.0.0.1. Right, let me run this again. Reply is not defined. Reply, here we go. We'll restart this. Cool, get out of here, kid. Oh, it is applied by default. Okay, cool. I think if we want to apply it only for specific routes, we can set the pre-handler specifically by going pre-handler and then auth. So that applies it on this specific route. We could change this around if we didn't want to do it like that. But we do want to do it like that, so there you go. Now, I think the best thing to do is to test in Postman if we can use our special key to get any facts or results out. So to do that, we're probably going to actually have to just verify that we can use a key with a specific user. So we'll go to our users in PocketBase, and we've got this user here, Sam, and we'll link Sam to this key. And now that we've linked Sam to that key, we can open Postman. So I've got this route set up here, so I'm just going to run this. Yep, we get out of here, kid, 401. That's what we would expect. Now, going back to our code, if we have a header set up here with x-API key, in theory, it should work. So we need to make sure that we set our key with this one. Okay, it still doesn't like it. This will be it. So that didn't include API keys. So let me reboot this. Guys, always check your names, come on. And now if we run this again. Let's see. Invalid quoted text. True dat. We'll restart this. Here we go. Alright, so that's working, and we can tell it's working because if I change this here, it says get out of here, kid. So that is the simple routing that we've got set up. That's authentication set up very, very simply in PocketBase. I love PocketBase. And Fastify is pretty good too. I mean, like, now we go here and we can start calling our facts. So we're just going to say that for this instance, what we'll do is we'll just say await PB collection, call this facts, and then I think it's like list all or something like that, but let's not guess. Let's do this properly. So if we go here, then get full list. This should return all our facts. And let's see if it does. Gotta restart the Fastify server. Run here. Boom. We've got a cat facts. And if we don't have the right key, it throws us out. Now, I think this is pretty powerful, guys, and this is the sort of architecture which is very, very simple and easy to employ wherever you're working or whatever project you're doing. And yeah, I would love to see the APIs that you guys come up with PocketBase. If you've got any questions about how to get started with PocketBase or where to host this, I'll probably do a follow-up video on this, but I did basically create a Docker image for my web service and hosted it there. And the same thing that I've done with PocketBase. If you want a Docker image that you can use, or if you're interested in, if you've already got a little bit of Docker experience, I would recommend checking out PocketBase Stripe, which is my own repo, which I've created just so that you can basically build your own apps using Stripe and PocketBase together. But if you're still in the process of learning and you're wanting to learn Docker, I'm happy to show you guys the ropes on that. Just let me know in the comments below. Thanks. Bye.